I belong, up with my Father and the angels, to this place where I belong.
Welcome to this special episode of the Catechetical Corner, handing on and defending the faith. Dr. Christian Smith, a sociologist and convert to the Catholic faith, conducted a study amongst various families and children from all types of socioeconomic and ethnic backgrounds, from the time their child received their first reconciliation and communion, and he traced their faith journey from that point until the time they were confirmed as young adults. Dr. Smith's study revealed that the biggest impact on a child remaining a practicing Catholic post-confirmation was not their pastor, their youth minister, a CCD teacher, or religion teacher at their Catholic high school, regardless of how important those individuals' ministry in the church is. No, the number one factor in them staying Catholic was their parents' active practice of the faith. St. Pope John Paul II, in his apostolic exhortation, Catechesis Tradendae, states, "Family catechesis, therefore, precedes, accompanies, and enriches all other forms of catechesis. Furthermore, in places where anti-religious legislation endeavors even to prevent education in the faith, and in places where widespread unbelief or invasive secularism makes real religious growth practically impossible, the church of the home remains the one place where children and young people can receive an authentic catechesis. Thus, there cannot be too great an effort on the part of Christian parents to prepare for this ministry of being their own child's catechist and to carry it out with tireless zeal." In this episode, Father Tim Donovan, priest from the Diocese of Orange, California, and the head of Faith and Family Ministries, shares resources and practical tools they have available to empower parents to be the catechist their children in the church of the 21st century desperately needs them to be.
Happy to be with you today and not doing that ministry for a little bit, and going to walk and journey with all y'all today. So I am the president and founder of Faith and Family Life Catholic Ministries, and we are a public association of the Christian faithful in the Diocese of Orange. So that's just a long, fancy way of saying that the Bishop in Orange has erected us as a group to develop catechetical resources for families. So Bishop Van in Orange very much so believes in our mission and what God has placed in our hearts, that he's erected us with that status. We're also a nonprofit, 501c3, and so all the things that we do are to get these resources into the hands of families at the most affordable price that we can do for the sake of our people. Because I know that my family and my faith were the two biggest gifts that God has ever given me, and I want that for every single family that we have in our church. And so our mission really is to provide relevant and innovative faith formation resources that place parents at the center of the faith formation experience. We say that we move to a family-centric, church-supported model rather than a church-centric, family-supported model. And moving them not just there kind of in theory or an idea, but actually in a concrete reality, giving them concrete, relevant, gentle, beautiful resources that help them to accomplish that in their own lives as parents. We always say that we're first ministers and then publishers. I was a youth minister since I was 19 years old. Not sure who thought that was a good idea when they signed that employment paperwork, but anyways, Father Seamus was his name. Just celebrated a funeral with him Monday, and if it wasn't for his crazy yes many years ago, I wouldn't be a priest today, I'm pretty sure of it. And so I'm grateful for him and grateful for that opportunity to be a priest now, to be here and to be ministering in this way. We're offering here in our suite of resources called Pathways, which we'll get to in a little bit, a tool that helps to provide a structure to facilitate witness and intentional conversations in families. We want to give parents the language. We want to give them the concrete tools to live out this call to be the primary catechist of the faith. We do a lot of great lip service to that in the church, right? Everyone can say, yes, primary educators of the faith. But I think we've done a real poor job in resourcing our parents to actually do that. And so that's really where this ministry is born out of in our hearts. I was a youth minister, but we realized that no matter how good the youth ministry was that we were doing, probably within weeks, if not within the first couple of weeks of college, most of those kids came back as full-blown atheists, right, or agnostics, right? And that's just kind of the reality where we're at. And we were looking like, what were the kids who kept their faith? And almost always, the common denominator was that it's practiced in their home. And we know, I think, just from our own experience, but also all the stats point to this as well, that if it's not in the home, the likelihood of it sticking in the heart of a young person is very, very low. And so this is our mission, this is what we're about, and we're excited to share this with you today, to just invite you, but we're also, more importantly, going to share a what and a how from our resources, but more importantly, a why. Because if we start with the why, we can understand no matter what resource you're using, we're not here to sell a resource, right? We're here to inspire anything to be done to better equip our parents for this task of sharing and witnessing to their faith to their children.
All of you were supposed to have our box for reconciliation, which is called MEND, okay? But you each have a different resource. Some of you have MEND, some of you have the one for First Communion, Nourish, some of you have the one for the Creed, Root, but they all come packaged in this way that families learn how to do a short, and I mean short, 20, 30, 40-minute family meeting together. Everything they need is in that box. Because if they have to go to Hobby Lobby, do you have Hobby Lobby? Okay, yeah, it's heaven, isn't it? I mean, it's just, so if they have to go to Hobby Lobby, it's not gonna happen. So literally everything is in that box, okay? But the first thing that the parents see on top of it is a parent guide. And I'm gonna show you for MEND, for that resource, how we started. And so I want you to think about what you're used to coming to as a parent, if you're preparing your child for reconciliation. I've been to so many of these meetings. And I mean, literally, sometimes the PowerPoints will go on, and I mean, I can't even explain, 4 sheets of how to go through reconciliation, what to wear, what to do, and yet we'll never pray for the kids. I mean, it's just this whole thing. And they'll teach. But what I have found, my greatest teaching tool is Joseph. My 27-year-old son, for a chunk of his life, I would say from high school through college, I loved him and I did not like him. We struggled so hard to find common ground. I remember I made him do a Myers-Briggs test with me. Can you imagine that? In my living room, okay? And I said what I was. At the end of it, I said, okay, I'm a such and such, da da da. And he goes, of course you are, Mom. And guess what? I don't hang out with anyone like that. And I said, look at yours. Same. But there was a moment, and I can't tell you my whole, but there was a moment when this mother saw that kid in the distance, and he ran into my arms, just like in the prodigal son, and where we finally saw each other for the first time. And when I talk about that to parents, I mean, I got people waiting in line to talk to me. They're like, oh my God, I've got a Joseph too. Oh my God. But I say, oh my God, we're both things. We're the parent, but we're also the child. And we need to run in his arms because he wants to hold us through it. And then I'll say, okay, and now we're gonna watch the video for how we go to confession, okay? But I've already witnessed to something they understand, the love of God the Father for us, because they know that as a parent loves a child. And so I'm gonna show you this resource is a part of our work with parents. And they have, in your book, you'll see there's a parent guide and it has them reflecting on some things. And then they all watch this video called Lights. And I just want you to enjoy the fact that you're loved like this.
was a quote recently I heard that really has stuck with me. It said that kids will rarely be what they cannot see. Kids will rarely be what they cannot see. And if they don't see their parents as reconciling, they don't see their parents going and kneeling next to that confessional and reconciling themselves, they will rarely go to that place as a source of reconciliation themselves. And so in our suite of resources, we begin with parents always. To be honest with you, our entire formation suite is about parent formation, and then inviting those parents to witness to their kids about these encounters that they're having with the Lord. And so it's our hope that each parent, as they watch this video, would come into that touch of place themselves, as Pam was talking about, running to the Father themselves, so that they could ultimately become those prodigal fathers and mothers who welcome their children in return. As Dr. Bill was talking about earlier, right, that's the first encounter of reconciliation that they're going to experience is usually with their families and their parents. And if we don't have a good experience of that as parents in the church, the last time we went, Father yelled at us and it wasn't good, right? It's hard for us to be like, yes, son, it's going to be great. You should go in there, huh? But when they encounter this God, a God who reveals himself in this way, then with confidence they will bring their children forward to that sacrament, huh? And that's the heart of what we're trying to move parents to, putting them into encounters, experiences, reflections to aid that in themselves. And so you'll see if you break open that mend box, if you have one there, if you don't, break open whatever box you got in there. And we want to get you hands-on with some of our materials, because all of our materials are to put parents to first encounter that themselves, to learn it themselves, and then to give them a concrete tool to then share that with their kids. It's not enough for us just to have experiences ourselves, but we have to be given language and tools to then give that to our children in a very accessible and meaningful way. And so if you have your mend box, I'm going to talk just generally, because we don't have all mend boxes for everyone, generally about our family meeting structure before we dive into them. And then what we're going to invite everyone to do is we're going to take just one of those family meetings, and if you're at a table that doesn't have one, maybe to join another table that does. And you're going to just take some time to read that, experience it yourself, and to share it with your group. But before we do that, all of our resources, as Pam said, come in these beautiful boxes. We also offer digital resources for parishes if that's an option that they'd like to go for. But this helps to remove every obstacle that parents could say into doing this at home, right? Everything's there. It's accessible. It's a one sheet of paper per meeting. And so really every single one of our family meetings follows the very same structure. There's a certain piece in a rhythm, huh? We know what to expect. We're going to go into it confident that we know how to go with this, going again and again. And so our family meetings always start off with some sort of gathering ritual. And for men, that gathering ritual consists of first praying the Our Father together, especially its connection as learning the basic prayers in a family, but also to recognize, like, forgive us our trespasses as we forgive those who trespass against us. This constant reminder to bring them back to that truth of what this sacrament's all about. And then at the end of each time, after they pray that Our Father, there's a bottle of holy water you can see in that mend box, and it comes blessed. One of the guarantees about having a priest on the team, right? So all those ones are blessed, so don't throw those away. Pour them out if you're going to. And so what the parents do is we teach them how to bless their children with holy water. It's one of the lost arts in the church, huh? That parents have the right and the authority to bless their children. But we haven't reminded them that very often. And so that bottle of holy water gives them the words, huh? May the Lord bless and keep you. And they simply trace a cross over the child's forehead at the beginning of each of these experiences. And that begins to have encounters of faith happen with them, each other. Then we always have a check-in question. That always is something just to get the conversation going within a family. It's usually something that relates to what's going to be talked about. Through that, gets the parents just to start sharing. We've had parents tell us, like, I never knew my kid thought about these things in that way, because they never had those intentional faith conversations at home with them. And after that intentional kind of like check-in question with the families, the next part is always a hands-on experiential activity. We say that the activities teach the kids and the teachings teach the parents. And so each one of those should have a physical item in the box that goes with it. If you have the claim box, which is our baptism one, that's all parent meetings, so just for the context of that one. Then there's always a teaching, very simple teaching, but always very deep as well, that relates to what's going on there. And then we have a concluding prayer. So I want you each to break open those resources, hand out a family meeting to each person, grab the resource that goes with it, and take about 3 to 4 minutes to read through that whole resource. And then once we do that, I want you to come back and we're going to do some sharing, okay? All right. Awesome. I love the chatter in the room. What we love about our resources is that they create conversation, which is what is at the heart of our mission, is giving tools for intentional faith conversations to happen at home. One of the stats I heard recently was less than 10% of families who go to church every Sunday have anything more than a dinner time prayer at home as an intentional way to live out faith. Less than 10%. If you extrapolate that in the Diocese of Orange, with only about, let's say, 12% of the people going to church in the Diocese of Orange, that's less than 1% of all of the people in the whole church having intentional faith conversations at home. So our entire mission is to raise that up, right? And we know that those are transformative for them. So here's a little video I want to play for you, and it's how we introduce our resources on our website.
Footsteps. They take us down many roads, many paths, different destinations, different perspectives. The church invites us to walk with her. It takes all sorts of paths to welcome families in. Let's meet them along the road and lead them home. Introducing Pathways.
All right, so Pathways is our entire suite of things in front of you in your bifold. If you open that up, pass those around. There might be not enough for everyone, but if you could share with maybe someone next to you. That's our entire suite of offerings this year. And so Pathways really, at the end of the day, is an invitation to accompany, an invitation to place in front of our parents a process of formation rather than just a program of formation. So we have a number of programs that come together into Pathways, but ultimately it's about putting someone on a path that's best for them. And so what we recognize as a ministry ourselves is that each family is on their own path. Each family comes to us from a different place, and hopefully our job is to come alongside of them, to come to learn about who they are, what they're about, and to come and lead them into a deeper encounter with Christ and his church. But we also recognize as the ministries that each of our parishes and schools is on a different path as well in where we are at in being able to provide resources for families. And so we always say that we are very committed to meeting one-on-one with each of the schools and parishes who use our resources to have these conversations to see how we can best help resource you for this work and for this ministry. And so I want to share today kind of our overview with you. I'll go through each of them, give you the kind of overview of that piece, but I want to first share just some origins of like, how did we come up with this? Sometimes people think that we just kind of show up and we're like, man, we just one day, the Lord just infused this into us, and we're like, here it is. But the reality is, that's part of it, because the Holy Spirit's at work, obviously. But to my surprise, and the surprise of our team, the new directory of Catechesis that came out just about 6 months ago, the word pathways, is used 18 times in that document. 18 times. We named our suite Pathways a year and a half ago. And to our surprise, and that's the work of the Holy Spirit, right? It's acknowledgement in the church, I think overall, especially Church Universal, that we need to individualize our approach to faith formation, right? And I think that that's a word probably all of our teachers are familiar with too much in the world of education, right? Individualize, right? And the idea is here that a one-size formation program that we have, like everybody, regardless of who you are, if you are a disciple maker family, like going to church every Sunday, you're going to go through the same 2-year formation, 26 weeks, here we are, right? All of it, huh? We're going to make you go through baptism every single time for your 7th child, you know, no matter what. But here's an opportunity for us to come alongside those families to see really what they need and to resource them at a very specific level, accompanying them ourselves, but also with other families in this process of formation. And really, so our model is all about accompaniment And it's all based on this kind of process of the catechumenate. The idea of the catechumenate is that it's a progressive formation. It's one that builds on the top of the next experience. And the idea is that's how our faith builds as well, right? We need those foundational experiences, first starting with that basic proclamation of the faith, and the basic catechesis, and then kind of these sacramental experiences, and then hopefully inspiring in families an ongoing faith formation within their homes for their entire lives long. And so our suite is built on these principles that you can find in all of our church documents. It's not something we just came up with at the top of our minds, but really I do feel as a priest, like sometimes, like even when I was youth minister, I was like, I know the best way to do this. And I had to humble myself into realizing, like, maybe if I actually listened and read what the church is inviting me into and trying to live that out, that it would produce fruit. Why? Because that's where the Holy Spirit is leading the church, huh? And the Holy Spirit is the one who does all of these things within us and within our families. And so that's our hope, and this is one stab at getting that out there in our way that the Lord has inspired us through our experiences of ministry and through our lives and through our hope to bring that to other families. And so this is all rooted in those realities. I want to go through just a couple kind of spiritual places that have inspired us, and then I invite you to read the entire Directory of Catechesis. Anybody read it yet? The new one? Oh, come on, y'all. You have to read that thing. You know, it's good. I recommend it. It'll put you to sleep the first chapter, but like skip over it, okay? Like the rest of it's great. Directory of Catechesis, it's called. It's awesome. I recommend it highly. The two spiritual sources, I think that Jesus' pedagogy of teaching is super important. And I want to go to two instances that have really touched my heart as a priest and have formed, I think, our vision here for Pathways. The first is Jesus' encounter with Peter post-resurrection, and the second is of the road to Emmaus. Both of these instances in the scriptures are where people were going back, disillusioned post-resurrection, going back to their regular daily lives. This didn't work out like I thought it was going to, huh? And here they are, but does Jesus just leave them? He says, okay, you're the last sheep, goodbye, right? No. He goes after them. In that first encounter, he goes to that seashore. There's Peter back, he's fishing. Why? Because he's a fisherman, right? And he goes back and he finds him. He says, Peter, remember, fishers of men now, let's go, right? And he pulls him aside and has this one-on-one encounter with him. And I want you to hear the words of the scriptures here. He says to Peter, he says, do you love me more than these? Fishing, other things, yourself, all of this. And he says, Jesus, you know that I love you. And then he says to him what? Feed my lambs, huh? Peter, do you love me? Feed my sheep. Peter, do you love me? Tend my sheep. I think very specifically here, Jesus focuses more on Peter's responsibility to the sheep than to the lambs. Why? Because who feeds lambs? Sheep feed lambs. And this is our responsibility, I think, as a church, is to be people who feed and tend lambs, feed and tend sheep, so that the sheep could then feed and tend the lambs. And that's kind of where our heart for this came out of. And so much focus is really bringing the parents along and getting them through the experiences so that we can then have them go and to really feed those lambs in that experience. The second is of the road to Emmaus. And I think that this is so important for me because like those disciples were disappointed in the church at that time, right? They were disillusioned. They were leaving Jerusalem and walking away. They were walking to Emmaus, huh? And Jesus meets them along the path, veiled. They didn't know who he was. And he walks with them. And I love this question that Jesus has asked them because I think that this is the question for all of us as accompaniment people. Tell me about that. What sort of things, huh? And could you imagine the God of the universe humbling himself to go and to ask that question to them, what sort of things, huh? Knowing perfectly well what sort of things happened. And he listened to them. And it was first in that encounter of listening to their anxieties, their worries, their grief, all of that experience that they had about Jerusalem and what happened there, that then he was able then to break open the word for them, to reveal to them that process that brought them into this newness, opened their hearts like, whoa, that was Jesus all along. And then in the breaking of the bread, their eyes were opened and their hearts were burning, huh? And this is our hope for this process of formation for each of our families, to first begin with that time of drawing close to them, getting to know their anxieties and their burdens and their worries, resourcing them, breaking open the word, and leading them toward our source and summit of our life, which is Eucharist, and then allowing them to go forth. And actually, those disciples did a crazy thing, huh? They turned around and they went back to Jerusalem. And that's what our hope and our desire is for all of our families, to walk toward the eternal Jerusalem, which is heaven, to come in and encounter Jesus in that profound way. I'm going to skip all the quotes from that new directory because I want you guys to read it, but I want to give just one that has shook me this last day. I've been sharing with Pam. It says that we have to move from giving welcome. Listen to this. We have to move from giving welcome to receiving welcome. From keeping the word and managing communications to giving the word. Recognizing always with astonishment the free initiative of God. When Pam talks about giving welcome, it's about receiving welcome, right? That's what her son experienced in that encounter, receiving welcome, rather than just saying hello on the email, huh? But actually encountering people face to face. And I hope that as this post-COVID world goes further, is that we can do more and more of that in that experience. And this last line, this missionary tension prompts catechesis to decentralize and to set itself to listen and to go forth toward life experiences of people, illuminating them with the light of the gospel. I think that this is the pedagogy of Christ, and I think this is the pedagogy that the church is inviting us to embrace in this new time. So we want to kind of open up for us here it is, our resources here. Awesome, you can see it there. All right, so we begin all of our resources. Let me turn on this microphone so I can look at the screen. Can you hear me now on this one? Okay. So we begin all of our resources, and this is like so important in the process of accompaniment with our families, is this process of the inventory and the interview. Now, an interview kind of sounds scary, right? None of us like going to interviews, right? And we say that this interview is an opportunity for us to sit with the family, to ask them that question, how are you? How was this last year? What's going on? How is sharing faith in your home? We say the interview is one thing. It is not an inquisition, right? We can sit down with families and be like, when's the last time you went to Mass? How did you do all these things? But the opportunity to sit down with them and say, how are you doing? Where can we go? How can we support you? How can we pray for you as a family? And really out of this interview, this experience, we're going to find out the families who are practicing their faith regularly. Guys, you know those families. You'll know all the names of them, right? The ones who might need a little bit more love and support are the families that we're going to learn about in this process as well. And so our idea of a pathway is that this is the beginning. We begin to know and to get to know our families and to be able to put them on a path with other families to help them journey in this process of formation called Pathways. Then we give to the parents this inventory that's on our website. You can read through it. It just invites the parents to reflect on their own experience of faith growing up. How was that passed on to them in their home? Was that a positive experience or was that a negative experience? Was that something that they want to continue or something that they want to amend in their own lives? And give them the opportunity to say, like, no, I want to do this. I want to receive and embrace this role as the primary catechist, right? As the one who forms my children in our home, to inspire them to do that. And so out of this experience of the inventory and the interview really pop out, we have found in our experience across the United States, two types of families. We have families who we call the disciple maker families, who are on what we call the faith freeway, which we want all of our families to be on. The ones who are practicing their faith weekly, the ones who are coming to Mass, the ones who are sharing faith at home, praying at home as a family. And all of us want our families to be that way. But what we try to do is we try to just drop the other families who are not there onto the faith freeway, right? And they feel like they get run over in the midst of it. Or they don't know when to sit or stand or all of these different things in the midst of our life of faith. But really the opportunity here, maybe those families who are not practicing their faith or maybe haven't uttered the word of Jesus in their home for a long time, are now, this is an opportunity for us to meet them there. To come alongside and say, we'd love to kind of come and bring you along through this process of initial formation, this progressive formation. To come in and to give them a first proclamation of the gospel. And Pope Francis says, the kerygma is not something that we get over, right? The kerygma is not something that we kind of do once and it's over with in our lives. It's something that the entire rest of catechesis is a development of these major points of the Christian faith. Like, this is the meat and potatoes. That God sent us, He made us good. We've sinned and we've fallen away from that, and God sent His Son, Jesus, to redeem us and to bring us back, and He gives us His Holy Spirit and the church to remain and keep us in a relationship with Him. And so Seek is this experience that we give our families, our children, and our parents. We bring them to church, we put them into small groups with their other children and other parents, and we give them an opportunity to accompany with each other through these movements of the kerygma. So we bring them just like we are here into this kind of hall in this space. We put them around tables, and we give them experiences like we talked about with those videos and with other reflections and hands-on things that they have to do, while the kids are away in a different place doing a VBS-style experience. We have in the back the little backpack for that and some of the journals if you want to see these experiences for Seek. So as the children are experiencing in a VBS style with hand movements, the music and activities and all those kind of fun things and a kind of adventure theme, the parents are sitting together with other parents in what we call small group pods, and they're journeying with them through this experience of formation. And our hope here is that the parents would begin to open their hearts to share and witness to each other around that table, to continue to form each other in the faith. The idea with Seek here really at the end of the day is John Paul II's mission. He said that families form families. Parents form parents, kids form kids. And when we put them into these encounters, these relationships with their other peers, they can do that. And it would be our hope then that those families who popped out of the interview experience as the disciple maker families, that maybe those families would be the ones that we would invite to come and to accompany the other families in the process, to come and to walk alongside them, to be models of this life of faith and living out the life of faith in our world. And so in this experience of Seek, it's supposed to be a basic proclamation that inspires in them a desire to seek Jesus and desire to be in a personal relationship with him. What we found when parents say that I don't want to do this, what they're really saying is, I don't know how to do this. And so when we give them their own experiences, when we resource them with faith and stories and witness testimonies, they then can inspire in them their own testimony to begin to share that with their children. At the end of those two experiences, they come back together and they have an opportunity to share a shared prayer experience with each other. It gives them that first opportunity to have the parents and the kids to exchange an intentional moment of faith with each other. And so in the progressive nature of our formation, this Seek is a really important first part. Some parishes have decided they want to use this just like in the summer before any other program starts. They're going to do 4 sessions of Seek altogether, like 4 nights in a row for the entire DRE programs. And that's a really beautiful option because everyone needs to rehear the kerygma over and over in our lives. I know I need to get that over and over, that I need a God who is that good to come and to revision my life each and every time. And we move then to our experience. Our next step of formation is what we call root. So after we have this initial invitation to an encounter with Christ and to begin that personal relationship with him, then we need to learn more about who Christ is, how God has revealed himself throughout history and throughout our lives. And so this focus here of root is a basic catechesis for parents, and then giving them a concrete tool, and you see in our root boxes here how to live that out and deliver that to their kids. And so root actually covers the entire contents of the first part of the catechism, right? That sounds crazy, right? But all of it is in there, the entire piece of the creed, and that's basically the essential parts of our faith. And so through 5 or 6 mini-series for the parents of 15-minute self-led sessions, they go through and reflect on that themselves with their spouse, by themselves, and are accompanied by a catechist in that journey. As they reflect on these beautiful truths of our faith, fleshed out with stories, questions, practical experiences, and prayer, they then are able to again be equipped with a vocabulary of faith to then share that with their children. So after each mini-series, so it's about 5 15-minute sessions per mini-series, then the parents then lead their children through a family meeting. And so that family meeting structure that you experienced is the same throughout all of our resources. And so what they do is they go and get their families together and teach them with this concrete tool an element of what they just learned in their own study of the catechism themselves. And so what we're hoping to do here is form parents and giving them a vocabulary, building their confidence, and allowing them to share their reflections with other parents and family members as well. And as this process grows, they become more confident in their ability to become these primary educators in their home. Not just using family as like necessarily the context of faith formation, but actually like the locus, the home as the place that these conversations are happening with very intentional, meaningful resources.
The best argument for and against Catholicism are Catholics. In St. Mark's Gospel, Jesus exhorted the disciples as he began to teach them that the Son of Man must suffer greatly and be rejected by the elders, the chief priests, and the scribes, and be killed, and rise after 3 days. Peter took him aside and began to rebuke him. At this he turned around, and looking at his disciples, rebuked Peter and said, "Get behind me, Satan. You are thinking not as God does, but as human beings do." Just as individuals in the magisterium can be signs of inspiration or scandal to the sheep they have been called to shepherd. So can we as parents be either an inspiration or a scandal to the lambs we have been called to feed after we have taken the initiative to feed ourselves. This vision for catechesis is a holistic view of constantly transmitting the faith as the main focus and center of parish life, rather than something completely isolated and separated from it. Let us confidently call upon Mary, who is the first perfect disciple. Ask her and St. Joseph to parent you in the faith, and then cooperate with God's grace to parent your own children. Are we conforming Christ to our own image and likeness, or are we allowing Christ to conform us into his? The answer to that question determines the Catholic we are, and studies show it also determines the kind of Catholic our child will be 20 years from now. She was the first disciple above all else, because no one has been taught by God to such depth. She was both mother and disciple, and as St. Augustine said of her, venturing to add that her discipleship was more important for her than her motherhood. There are good grounds for the statement made in the Synod Hall that Mary is a living catechism and the mother and model for every catechist. God love you, and we'll see you next time.